Welcome back to Yahoo Finance's special coverage of President Biden's first 100 days. A rising number of illegal immigrants crossing the southern border is sparking fresh criticism of the Biden administration and its immigration policy. We want to bring Yahoo Finance's Kristen Meyer. She has been covering this story very closely for us. And Kristen, this has been extremely challenging for Biden's team in these first 100 days, and more specifically, even the huge number of unaccompanied minors crossing the borders. And this is something that's not showing any signs of letting up anytime soon.
Absolutely, Shauna. And actually, President Biden's approval ratings, at least on the issue of immigration, have actually taken a little bit of a hit lately because of it. And as you mentioned, Republicans have been very critical of the Biden administration's immigration policies lately, especially after some visited the border and some called it chaos. And they all largely criticized the Biden administration's lax immigration laws and what they view as weak enforcement. Now, Senator Ted Cruz was actually one of those politicians who visited the border recently. Let's take a look at what he said.
On the other side of the river is Mexico. On the other side of the river, we have been listening to and seeing cartel members, human traffickers, right on the other side of the river, waving flashlights, yelling and taunting Americans, taunting the Border Patrol, because they know that under the current policy of the Biden administration, they can flood over here. They're getting paid $4,000 or $5,000 a person to smuggle them into this country, and our policies, when they smuggle them in, the Biden administration releases them.
Now, on that trip, he also got into a standoff with a Biden staffer who essentially prevented him from filming. And Senator Cruz had said that the conditions on the border were undignified. He also called it a humanitarian crisis. Now, originally, the Biden administration had actually put a 100-day moratorium on deportations. Now, that was overturned by a federal judge. But let's talk about some of the figures here. ICE arrests have fallen by 2/3 last month. So that's the month of March. And that's compared to what we saw at the end of the Trump administration, when some of those figures had actually started to slow down because of the pandemic. Now, the population of immigrants in detention is also steadily decreasing. That's down to 14,000 last month, the month of March. That's from 56,000 in 2019. But, even as these numbers are dropping, the amount of arrests are on the rise. Last month, that figure was up over 170,000. That's up from just under 100,000 in the month of February. Adam, Shauna?
Kristen, stick around because we're going to bring into the stream Janet Napolitano. She was Secretary of Homeland Security under President Obama, and also the governor of Arizona. Governor Napolitano, it is good to have you here. What advice would you give to President Biden when President Bush in 2007, there was an immigration bill, and Democrats controlled the House and the Senate then, would have given citizenship to 12 million undocumented individuals, and the Democrats couldn't bring it through. So what's changed? What would you tell Biden to do?
Well, I think there need to be three things. Number one, you have to have good, effective border security that's also consistent with our values. Number two, you need to deal with the root causes of illegal immigration from the countries of Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala. And then number three, you need to do exactly as he has done, which is put a comprehensive immigration reform proposal before the Congress so they can grapple with this issue, which has been frustrating our country for far too long.
Governor, why are we in this position? I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen a wave of migrants crossing the border in the past several years. So why are we in the position that we are in today, just 75 days into Biden's presidency?
Well, I think there are a lot of causes. Some of them are the root causes of immigration that I just described from the countries of Central America. But in addition, the Biden administration needs to quickly ramp up its capacity to handle the unaccompanied minors. Now, the sheltering and the placement of unaccompanied minors is handled by the Department of Health and Human Services. DHS can help through FEMA, but they need to focus on how more quickly not only to take in those minors, but to place them either with family members or foster parents away from the border. So, and that's a capacity issue, and they need to ramp it up.
Governor, is there any truth to the, Republican criticism that a lot of these immigrant families perhaps feel that now is the better time to make that long, difficult, dangerous journey because the Biden administration is a little bit more lax when it comes to those immigration policies compared to the previous Trump administration?
Well, I know there's a tendency to blame everything on Biden's reforms, but indeed they are reforms. And the way the border was handled and actually dismantled where the treatment of minors is concerned during the Trump administration is part of the problem here. So the Biden administration is having to ramp up facilities and shelters and staffing all on a very quick basis. And I have to say, if I'm a parent and I'm thinking about sending my child alone through a dangerous immigration journey into a country where they would be, in a way, a stranger in a strange land, I don't think my number one factor in consideration is going to be some change in Biden's immigration policy. I think the real factor is going to be to get my child out of harm's way and into a better future.
In fact, let's listen to what President Biden said recently about what's happening on the border, and then we'll get your reaction afterward.
We're sending back the vast majority of the families that are coming. We're trying to work out now with Mexico their willingness to take more of those families back. But that's what's happening. They're not getting across the border. And those who are coming across the border who are unaccompanied children, we're moving rapidly to try to put in place what was dismantled.
What was dismantled, Secretary Napolitano?
What was dismantled was the entire network of shelter capacity, and staffing at the border so that those unaccompanied minors could be dealt with humanely, that their asylum cases could be taken in, calendared, scheduled, and so that they could be quickly placed with either family members or foster parents in locations away from the border. And so you've got to put that all together very rapidly, and that is what has been straining the system.
Governor, I just wanted to ask you one last question here. You know, the Mexican Migration Project has been studying immigration since 1987, and that's the most comprehensive study that's being done on this subject. And what they found was that tighter border controls actually backfired because people chose to stay because they couldn't go back and forth across the border as easily as they once did. Knowing that, then, what is the best solution for solving this immigration crisis? I know you touched on it just a little bit ago to Shauna's question, but knowing that, then, how should we move forward?
You know, part of comprehensive immigration reform is to have a better way to handle legal migration and to increase the avenues for legal migration, including seasonal migration. I come from Arizona, as you noted, and our communities around the border and even north of the border, workers migrated back and forth. And I think the Mexican Immigration Project is correct that tightening up the border just served to keep undocumented migrants in the country, as opposed to respecting the seasonal flows of a true labor immigration practice.
Governor Napolitano, it's always great to speak with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. And of course, our thanks to Kristen Myers as well.